Fam, there are some news stories that hit you and you just can't process them right away because you weren't expecting them, not like this, not this way. Ryan Poles went on record publicly saying he would do whatever it takes to keep him, whatever it takes, and it still wasn't enough. The man who led the entire NFL with 7 interceptions last season, the backbone of that secondary, the veteran who lived through the best Bears football in years from the inside, is no longer a Chicago Bear. And that stings, man. It really does. But there's more, because while this roster shifts, Springfield is in a countdown for the soul of this franchise, and the draft arrives in 7 days with more questions than answers. All of that right now. Let's go. Let me give you the real context here. Kevin Byard arrived in Chicago at a moment when this secondary was genuinely one of the weakest units on the entire team. No identity, no leadership in the back end, nobody generating turnovers on a consistent basis. And then Byard walked through the door at Halas Hall. What this man did in his one season with Da Bears was honestly one of the most impressive individual chapters we've seen in this entire rebuild era. 7 interceptions, the highest total in the entire NFL last season. The second best single season total of his entire career. 93 total tackles, 61 of them solo, 4 tackles for loss, 8 passes defensed. All of that under defensive coordinator Al Harris in a brand new system with a secondary that was still finding its identity week to week. And the most jaw-dropping part of all of it is that those 7 picks were more than he had accumulated in his previous 2 seasons combined. This man came to Chicago and had the best year of his recent career. At 32 years old, Ryan Poles said it out loud. He'd do whatever it takes to bring him back. It didn't work. New England offered 2 years and $15.6 million, and Byard took the money. You can't blame him. That's the business of the NFL, but that doesn't make it any easier to watch. Now listen to what Byard said on his way out, because this is what separates this departure from a bitter one. He talked about Caleb Williams. He talked about Ben Johnson. He said Johnson came in and reconstructed everything from scratch for a quarterback who had never taken a snap under center at the pro level. That is not a player who left angry at the organization. That is a player who experienced something special in the Windy City and simply made the best decision for his family and his career. And that, paradoxically, makes his departure harder to accept. Because there's no drama, no resentment, no ugly story behind the scenes. Just a great player who left because another team paid more, that's it. But there's a chapter in this story that isn't finished yet, and it belongs to Cole Kmet. Kmet is standing at the most interesting crossroads of his career right now. The tight end from Lake Barrington, Illinois, the kid who grew up 30 miles from Soldier Field and watched his dream come true when the Bears drafted him in the second round of the 2020 draft, arrives at 2026 in a complicated spot. $11.6 million cap hit this season, under contract through 2027, and there's a rookie named Colston Loveland who in his very first NFL season posted 70 catches, 906 yards, and 6 touchdowns, including 193 yards across 2 playoff games. Kmet's numbers dipped in 2025, 30 catches, 347 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's a real step back from his best season in 2023 when he hauled in 73 balls for 719 yards and 6 scores. So why not cut him, trade him, free up that cap space? Chicago Tribune insider Brad Biggs laid it out clearly this week. The organization already paid Kmet a $1 million roster bonus in March. That is as clear a signal as you can send. The Bears are not moving him before this season starts. And there's a powerful tactical reason to keep them together. How many teams in the entire NFL have a legitimate 1-2 punch at tight end working at the same time? Almost none. Ben Johnson loves this position, fam. Running 2 tight end sets with Loveland and Kmet sharing the field simultaneously is a defensive coordinator's absolute nightmare. You can't bracket both of them. You can't match up against that combination with a base defense. Kmet might be willing to take a hometown discount to stick around beyond 2027. He already signed 1 extension with this franchise. He understands what it means to be a Chicago Bear. And if Ben Johnson is building something truly special here, Kmet knows that being part of it carries a value that doesn't always show up in the contract number. The question now, with Byard gone, is who fills that hole in the secondary, and the most likely answer arrives in 7 days. In Pittsburgh, at the draft, Safety Emmanuel McNeil Warren from Toledo is the name most connected to the Bears for pick number 25. Dane Brugler describes him as an impressive size-speed athlete on the back end who could dominate in the box against the run or lockdown receivers in open space. That's almost exactly the profile Byard brought to this defense. But he's a rookie, and filling the shoes of a player who led the entire NFL in interceptions is not a simple ask for anyone. Dennis Allen has serious work to do in year 2 because one of the legitimate criticisms of this defense last season was allowing too many big plays and touchdowns down the middle of the field. Byard gave up 7 touchdown catches. Not all of that was on him, but that's the one aspect of his game nobody is going to miss in Chicago. And fixing that vulnerability has to be a priority going into the new season. All right, complete change of scenery here because what's happening in Springfield, Illinois right now is just as urgent as anything happening on the field or in the draft room. Tomorrow, Friday, is the deadline for the Illinois House of Representatives to send the Senate the mega projects bill that would clear the path for the Chicago Bears to build a brand new domed stadium in Arlington Heights. And if that bill doesn't move forward, Indiana is standing right across the state line with a fully assembled proposal for a dome in Hammond that's been on the table since late February. Representative Cam Buckner, one of the main drivers of the Illinois bill, came out this week and said something that genuinely gave me chills. He said Chicago is a ninth inning kind of town. The game is not over until the last man is out. I respect that optimism, I really do, but the obstacles facing this bill are very real. Chicago Democrats are divided. Some are demanding the Bears contribute to the $500 million debt left over from the Soldier Field renovation 2 decades ago. Buckner had to come out and clarify publicly that the Bears don't owe that money. That debt was taken on by the Chicago Park District and the Illinois Sports Facility Authority. Not the franchise, but the political perception is locked in and it's blocking votes. Republicans, meanwhile, need to be part of the coalition to push this thing through. Representative Dan Ugaste is demanding significant property tax reform as a condition in a state that already carries some of the highest property tax rates in the country with virtually no budget surplus. And beyond all of that, Illinois would need to generate roughly $850 million in infrastructure improvements around the Arlington Heights site. On Indiana's side, the proposal is to let Indiana toll road operators raise their rates twice a year to funnel $700 million toward infrastructure in the area surrounding the potential Hammond Stadium site. In other words, Indiana drivers paying higher tolls so the Bears can play football in their state. Buckner said it without sugarcoating it. That's Indiana bending statewide policy and redirecting public money to hand the Bears a new playground. And he's right. But the most important detail in all of this is April 27th. That's when an NFL owners subcommittee meets virtually with Bears officials for a stadium update. The Bears have already said they want a solution sooner rather than later. If Illinois can't bring something presentable to that meeting, Indiana wins the argument by default. Buckner believes the McCaskey family does not want to be the generation that moved Doe Bears across the state line. I believe that too, but belief doesn't build stadiums, votes, and money do. Springfield, y'all know what you have to do. And to close things out, the draft, because it's 7 days away and the Bears board at pick 25 is honestly one of the most complicated and fascinating situations anywhere in the league right now. ESPN Analytics dropped their draft day predictor tool, and the names that surfaced for pick number 25 range from defensive tackles to safeties to offensive tackles to wide receivers. 8 different positions with real probability on the same pick. That is not a draft board, that is a roulette wheel with helmets on it. The most likely options, according to ESPN, are Peter Woods from Clemson, the defensive tackle, at 8%, Cassius Howell, edge rusher from Texas A&M, at 7.5%, Emmanuel McNeil Warren, the safety from Toledo, at 6.5%, and sitting right in that mix is Kristen Miller from Georgia, who CBS Sports reported this week as a new first-round candidate that Bears fans need to start paying attention to. The problem with the available defensive tackles is that the 3 main options, Woods, Caden McDonald from Ohio State, and now Miller, all project more as early down run stoppers than complete 3-down interior linemen. And with a run defense that ranked 6th worst in the league last season, the Bears absolutely need to upgrade there. But the real question is whether you need to spend the 25th pick on that profile when you've got 2 second-round selections to address exactly that need. Because if 2 or 3 of those tackles slide to Friday, Poles can trade back, collect additional draft capital, and still land his preferred interior defender. That has been the defining philosophy of his entire tenure as general manager. Patience over panic every single time. On the offensive tackle side, the argument from ESPN's Field Yates is the one that makes the most sense to me. Spending the 25th pick on a left tackle when Ozzie Trapilo is likely returning healthy in 2027 is a rash move. You already have Braxton Jones back in the building. You already brought in Jedrick Wills Jr. as a bridge piece. The tackle situation for 2026 is reasonably covered. Don't waste a first-round pick on a position you've already addressed temporarily. And if McNeil Warren is still sitting on the board when Chicago's turn comes up, that pick starts making a whole lot of sense, given everything we just talked about with Byard's departure. 7 days, Poles, 7 days. Look, this roster is alive. It's changing. Byard is gone, but everything he built here stays. Kmet still has something to say in Navy and Orange. The stadium could still happen in Illinois if Springfield does its job, and the draft could be the day that defines the defensive ceiling of this team for the next 3 years. Daybears aren't building anymore. They already built. Now they're sharpening the edges. And fam, that is exactly where you want to be. If you made it this far and haven't hit that like button yet, you already know what to do. Drop your take in the comments below. What does Poles do with pick 25? Edge rusher, safety, trade back and grab 2? I want to read every single one. Bear down, Chicago, Navy, and Orange forever.